this session, and we will put it out later. We have and if anybody can find my brain, can you please send it back, because that would be nice. We have a new YouTube channel. We will be putting it up on there, and I'll send it out in an email later. Now, if I can remind you to please block your mic and your video if possible, and we'll get started. I am Rhonda Donaldson, and I'm the coordinator of research services at Shepherd University in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. And this session is Opportunity Does Not Knock, Building Teams in Undergraduate Research Journal. And it is being presented by Elin Woods, Sara Parme, and Chris Clouser. Elin is formerly from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and Sara and Chris are both still there. So without further ado, I am passing it on to your presenters. Good luck and have fun.
All right, thank you, Rhonda. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. The first thing I am going to do is, let's move on to our other slide here. Okay, so welcome everyone, thank you for coming. The first thing that we're going to do today while we open up this is I'd like to share a short story with you all entitled, What's a Librarian to Do? So once upon a time at a conference not so far away, Sara, my colleague and co-presenter, was hosting a roundtable on institutional repositories. And I attended the session not because it had anything to do really with my job directly, but because I was interested in what kinds of things Sara was working on in her job and what we could work on together. So we sat through the airing of grievances. Our fellow librarians shared what they were doing with their platforms. And in the middle of all of that, we learned that IUP used to have an undergraduate research journal, used to have being the key. And I kept hearing that repeated over and over again throughout the rest of the session, and it wasn't leaving my thoughts. I kept thinking that would be such a cool thing for us to do, and the fact that we used to do it, gave it away or abandoned the idea, and now it may or may not be still running or just sitting on someone's server somewhere, wasn't resting. And I found out that it wasn't with Sara either. She too was interested in having continued conversations about developing this journal again. And so when we got back from the conference, we kept chatting throughout the rest of the semester, so this would be last year. And if I may be so bold, we hatched a brilliant idea to start the journal again at our campus. So fast forward to the academic year of 2019-2020, and we had unofficially dubbed it the year that Sara and Elin do all the awesome things. And well, if you've noticed outside, it's a bit of a dumpster fire out there. Not even bringing up yet COVID-19. We get emails regularly about drops in enrollment. We get emails about budget cuts, especially at the library, which is always fun to deal with. And now rumors of retrenchment are lingering out in the air. And so Sara and I had a serious conversation about what do we want to do with this moving forward? Is this something we still go on with, or do we put it on a back burner? But then we thought if we put it on a back burner again, what will happen is it might not ever see the light of day. And if we do that, we'll once again abandon this really great idea. So we decided not to lose hope. We'll talk more about that later. And instead decided to move forward with what we were doing, because we had already put in a lot of work and time, as had others, on this project. And it came down to a quote, which is the inspiration for our title today, from the TV show Friday Night Lights. The Coach Taylor in the series has a quote saying, "Opportunity does not knock, it presents itself when you beat down the door." And so everything that Sara and I have worked on with this, and then others as we gain momentum, is not because things were falling into our laps. Opportunity wasn't necessarily presenting itself all the time. It was that we kept making noise from knocking on doors and saying to people, we're doing this thing, and people went out of their way, ignoring whether or not it was something written in their job description, to come and join our team and develop what is going to become an undergraduate research journal. And so I would like to move forward, and we're going to talk about how we did that then.
Everyone. I'm Sara. I'm the picture at the top there. So yeah, me and Elin really wandered into each other's lives and offices, to be more precise. So we were, our job descriptions, I'll talk about in a minute, don't on paper line up at all. We were both at the time, a few years ago, we were the newest people at our library, and we both had these very new positions with these newfangled job descriptions that no one, including ourselves, really understood what we did. And, we both kind of landed there, given these brand new positions that had, not a lot of, paved road in front of it, and kind of left to our own devices. And that's not really how we prefer to work. So we spent about a year, like individually, kind of wandering around the library and on campus, kind of finding a way on how in these brand new positions, do we fit ourselves into, a ship that's already moving? And, what is our role there then? How do we integrate ourselves? And so it literally turned into just wandering into each other's offices and starting to spitball ideas. And I always call it throwing spaghetti at the wall. And it kind of turned into this thing of, well, if you want to do that, I can do this part. If you got my back, I got your back. And like, if you want to make this happen, I will help you make this happen. My actual formal position is scholarly communications / digital initiatives librarian. And part of that is there's a line in my job description that says, leads efforts to extend scholarly communication programming to the campus community, including university administration, faculty, graduate students, and selected undergraduate populations. How one position takes care of these 5 very separate groups, you tell me, and why it's only selected undergraduate populations, not sure. But we saw this opportunity to kind of combine forces and just see if anyone was going to stop us. We had to create a lot of these successes that we've done in this project and other projects. We've created successes in a lot of ways on our own, not because they were a part of our formal job description or that someone gave them to us. And, we don't want that struggle to be everyone else's journey. So what we're going to talk about a lot here is how we got creative and, stepped outside our job descriptions and what normally makes sense as partnerships to make things happen.
Yeah, and I'm Elin. I'm the bottom picture. And one of the reasons why Sara and I have worked so well together during the 3 years that we got to work together is because we both operate in, we've called it like improv. So often one of us will have an idea and it'll be followed up with, yes, and I can do this, or yes, I can bring that to the table, or I know someone. And so that's really why when All Hope why we kind of continue to do this project and why we have found success within our positions. My most recent position was a student success librarian, which was a brand new that we developed at the start of this last semester. And so that's a pretty broad job description or title to have. And so it's the same that Sara is doing. It's looking for ways to bring success to our students or provide them with opportunities so they can be successful themselves. But yeah, so a lot of this has been finding other people, and you'll meet Chris later, who have also joined in on Yes and as a way to get things done.
So taking it back to the beginning of the story that Elin started. So there once was a journal. There was no longer a journal. And why shouldn't there be a journal again?
And so one of the things that we discovered is when we started this, a lot of people, even prior to this, when we're being champions for undergraduates, is we often are presented with the question of, wait, you're interested in undergraduates? And we get this weird look from people because there's a lot of, well, graduates are the most important people because they're the ones doing, X, Y, and Z. And so we've really had to explain to people why it is that we want to work specifically with undergraduates. And a few of the reasons are undergraduates are representing the changing face of America. We see, and certainly graduate students are as well, but we're seeing undergraduates who are coming from different populations and backgrounds that have not been the typical undergraduate or college student. And so they're bringing new stories and new ways of viewing the world to our universities, which is exciting, and giving them opportunities to be able to share those voices is important to both of us. We also wanted the publishing process. As junior faculty member, we know that we're supposed to publish, or we're supposed to do some different things like that. And at first it can be a little bit daunting, because we see all of these other people who are supposedly our peers who have already accomplished this work. But once you do get published and you've gone through that process, it's maybe not as scary as at first. Trying to introduce that to a group of learners and researchers to say, you can accomplish this, and then maybe give them support should they decide to continue their studies at a higher level. Also, it provides them with success opportunities. Our students often feel when they've been polled that they feel like they don't belong on campus. And so this was also helping to add to that, allowing them to be successful in the community where they find themselves, doing that via developing mentorships with faculty members. Faculty members admitted that often they take students under their wing who maybe are the most vocal in their classes, but there might be some other students who just might not be vocal in class, but also are great researchers and have something to say. So we wanted to provide space for them as well. Also, undergraduates are kind of our bread and butter. We usually have more undergraduates at our institutions than we have graduate students. And so by ignoring this entire population who are with us for a longer period of time, I don't think proves as an advantage to us by just ignoring them and focusing on people who were there for maybe 2 years. So we really had to say to people, undergraduates matter, and this is why they should to you as well. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about how we actually did this. So the first steps that we took after Sara and I had plotted this out in various settings, we sent out an email inviting faculty members to attend a meeting about this plan that we were devising. And when that happened, our dean came to us and said he was getting a lot of angry notes and emails from various people across the campus who were upset that maybe they hadn't been included, or didn't know why this was happening from the library and not somewhere else. And so we had to alleviate some fears, but it also allowed us to connect with some future partners as well. One of those partners had innocently contacted me at the start of the semester saying she was interested in doing some undergraduate research, and someone told her I was too. And so with Katie not realizing what Sara and I were plotting, Katie, who is from the undergraduate research office and our geology department on campus, she kind of volunteered herself through all of this and had helped us set up, like, this is what she'd already been doing. She runs an undergraduate scholars forum. There are awards. There were all sorts of things that she could connect us with. And so she was sort of the first person that joined us on this journey. Then we have what we're calling as that faculty meeting that people would sign up to attend, but actually the attendance was fairly low. But we have a mailing list of people who stated that they were still interested in further developments of what we were going to be doing. And so that will be something that we do at the start of the fall semester, if not sooner, to reach out to them and explain to them, we're still going forward. So we have this faculty meeting. It's not attended as well as the initial response that we got, but it still ended up being a very productive meeting because Katie shared more information with us, our dean shared more information with us, and Chris was there. And I'll let him share his story about why he was there and how he got involved with us. And another partner came up, and there were questions about, well, what about the Writing Center? They have a satellite office at our library. We partner with them on a lot of other things. Why aren't we partnering with them here? And it was one of those things that almost made too much sense that we were ignoring it, not meaning to at first. But then it just turned into something that we were like, yeah, we should probably reach out to the Writing Center. That makes sense. And so we had a meeting then with the Writing Center.
And what a magnificent partner they turned out to be. The Writing Center has a satellite spot in the library, but it's to help undergraduate students with their citations and reading over their papers. And it wasn't immediately obvious to us that this would be a connection, but of course it was. So we had a meeting with the faculty member who heads up the Writing Center. And it was literally, as we brought her this very general idea of kind of what happens every fall and what would happen every spring. And it was literally, she had a whiteboard. She immediately took out a marker and we worked backwards. And we got to talk through every piece of this and pieces that we didn't think of. So what we settled on was a very a sort of traditional, the journal's multidisciplinary. It's going to be open access, but to sort of demystify this process, this whole research and publication process, it's going to run like a very traditional journal, in that there will be submissions. There'll be the initial submission. There's a peer review where the editors will then contact the students back with feedback. There's then a revision period, and then copy editing and final decisions. In there, we got to flesh out ideas like, we did find a role for graduate students. So grad students will be kind of our peer reviewers. Honestly, the reason we didn't go after graduate students right away is because they are a population on campus that is always quickly overturning. For us doing this, we were like, oh, we don't want to keep track of all these grad students. If we have to go, if they're graduating if there's a whole group of them graduating every semester, how are we going to keep track of all these graduate students? But what was great is that the faculty members we talked to were like, no, we got the grad students for you, don't worry. Like, we can find them for you. We will keep track of them for you about when they're here and when they graduate. We could do that end, but we'd love to give them this opportunity. And we would too. So they'll work as our peer reviewers, as will faculty who are struggling to find a service opportunity on campus that's actually meaningful to them. This would be a great opportunity for them as well. our April release at the end, that coincides with our annual IUP Scholars Forum, which is a undergraduate and graduate, basically like a research day. Students present posters, they do 5-minute theses, they do a lot of different activities, and they have faculty judges. And then it all ends up with this kind of, with a, a celebration at the end that we would fit into really, really well. So other than, besides just, working through this timeline with us, also the Writing Center offered to run workshops with us and for us. So they fleshed out 2 writing workshops, writing for publication for undergraduate researchers, and which will be co-run by us and library faculty. And second one is proofreading your writing, led by the Writing Center tutors. So this is giving this one project is giving opportunities to undergraduate student researchers, the Writing Center tutors, grad students who want to do reviews or want to do peer reviews, and faculty who want to do peer reviews, or mentor grad students who want to practice peer reviewing. So in the very beginning I talked about that big long list of people in my job description that how do you serve these very 5 separate populations with 5 different needs. Well, this does a decent job reaching out to a lot of those people. And so the idea is these workshops will be held every fall. And you have to, if you're going to be a student who's going to be submitting, then you have to at least meet with the Writing Center once. We encourage them to meet with the Writing Center also one-on-one once to get their paper read through the first time. And so they've offered a lot of support and publication support that they're offering us. So now that we've, me and Elin have found some partners on campus who are committed to helping us make this happen. Now it was time to actually do the thing. And actually doing the thing is what Chris is an expert at.
Okay, yeah, she just stole that right from my bio, I'm sure. My name's Chris, and I'm the webmaster, science bibliographer at IUP. And as you see here, I am the brains behind Baby Norm. There will come a slide where you get to actually see Baby Norm, but it is not this slide. I became part of this project unintentionally, really. I've collaborated with Sara and Elin on other projects that are closer to my wheelhouse. I've made library maps with them. I've worked on a website for open educational resources with Sara and other things like that. But in this case, which kind of fits the pattern already established by Elin, I was attending the meeting about the undergraduate journal because Elin was co-chairing that meeting and I was performing an annual peer observation for her. So I didn't really plan to go to that meeting. I just happened to be there. Turns out, though, that it sounded like a great idea and it was a really cool initiative. And there was a lot of discussion in there about marketing it and presenting it. And after the meeting, during which there'd been some discussion about logos and look and feel, like what was the logo going to be like, how are they going to promote it, I stopped by Sara's office and told Sara and Elin that they really ought to get on top of the whole Baby Yoda zeitgeist with a cute mascot kind of image. I mean, I probably didn't say zeitgeist, but anyway, I walked out of there like, my job here is done. And I only realized a little bit later that I could do this logo and they knew that. So I basically volunteered myself. Sara, can you move to the next slide?
I sure can.
It's not really that I minded, though. It's worth noting, again, in keeping with the whole pattern of this project, is that this kind of work, doing graphical work, is not really in my job description. And actually, none of this is in our job descriptions. At least none of us make undergraduate journals as part of our job. But it's genuinely something I like to do. It's exciting to work on. It's skills I have and I enjoy using, and I don't get to do too much in my job normally. And the neat thing about this for me is that it's kind of a stone soup production, right? Like, we started it with a pot of water, and then we get more and more people getting on board and throwing in their contributions. And then the pieces are simmering together and straws being spun into gold. And I'm losing control of the metaphor. But the bottom line is that this didn't accidentally happen. I mean, the initiative is being driven by Sara and by Elin. We didn't just crash into each other and have like the idea of a journal fall on the ground. But when it started rolling, it kept rolling because people saying, I can do this part. And there was no territorialism. There weren't any silos. It was just people saying, let's do a cool thing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sara, who's going to kind of explain the different pieces of this cool thing.
So when we first started doing this, I am such a believer in never reinventing the wheel. Because why? Just why? Why would you do that? Why would you ever reinvent the wheel? There are so many libraries and so many institutions doing cool things, and we very rarely ever share this work with each other. So we're all kind of in our individual, like Chris said, silos, reinventing this wheel. And I think it's the most ridiculous thing. So the very first thing I did was, we had digital commons at the time, but we don't anymore. But what it does have on their site is a bevy of lists of examples of things that can be put in digital commons. And what digital commons really, one of the great things it can do that very few others can do is journal publishing. So I went on their website and it had a list, a long, long list of student journals. And I just went through anyone that was an undergraduate, a multidisciplinary undergraduate journal. And, that's where I harvested the base of what this journal was going to be. The about of it being multidisciplinary and open access, the purpose of it, of allowing students to collaborate with peers and professors and helping students, further their careers in a field and have something to add to their own portfolios. The ideas for who could submit, how things could be submitted, and copyright. So, we didn't kind of spend a whole lot of time, trying to come up with these, original general blurbs. So many other people out there were already doing them, so we could read through, get ideas, and harvest the pieces that we thought were really going to be important. Things like formatting requirements that I feel really could have killed a lot of our time. Didn't have to, because we just saw what other people were doing, and we're like, that 12-point Times New Roman, everyone's pretty familiar with that. This is the max pages, let's roll with it. But the most important, that we took up the most of our time, and rightfully so, was the rubric. So we pulled a lot of other people's rubrics, and this is an example from Claremont College's Journal of Undergraduate Academic Rating, which I think is a really great one that we might kind of base our first go off of, because it's nice in general. So because this was this is going to be a multidisciplinary journal, what was great is that the partners that we found on campus were really willing to let us figure this out as we go. When we were talking to Katie from the Office of Undergraduate Research, who runs the Scholars Forum, where you have, a gymnasium full of posters from all these different disciplines, but yet you have faculty going around with the same rubric to grade them. She came out and told us straight out and said, you will never have the perfect rubric that works for everyone. It won't happen. The only thing you could do is get a general rubric, use that, and then when it blows up in your face or it really doesn't work one year, you pick a new rubric for the next year. And so, we've never been of the mind that every facet of an idea needs to be completely planned out in order for a good idea to go forward. I think we believe a lot of good ideas die that way. It dies from the, but what about, but what about, but what about, but what if, but when. And the partners we found were so willing to figure this out with us and let us figure it out as we went. You never know on a campus what's going to work at that moment and what won't. You throw spaghetti at a wall, and when something starts to stick, you chase after that thing in real time. So this rubric, like I said before, will be used by graduate students and faculty from each college. So the idea being, when a submission comes in, that submission will be reviewed by a graduate student or faculty member in that college. Not department, because some departments are so small. We talked to faculty about that, but they'll be reviewed in each college. And we're going to just see how it goes with the rubric, and see what works, and then adjust as we go along.
All right. And so one of the things that I am pretty good at is connecting with people, or I'm not afraid to talk to folks. I'm an extrovert in libraries, which is sometimes pretty rare. And so I'm really good at making contacts with folks. And I'm also, while I might talk a lot, I'm also pretty good at listening to what people say that they enjoy doing or say that they work for, and making those connections as we go. So while Sara was busy researching and coming up with all of these really great ideas, I was continuing to reach out to some folks about what else we could do and how to keep this ball rolling, and to continue what Chris was saying, continue to make stone soup. So Katie, do you remember from undergraduate research, she was already on our side, but she had a lot more information to share with us. Sara mentioned about the Undergraduate Scholars Forum, and she was like, oh, well, instead of you trying to create this whole process yourself, we use InfoReady down at the research office. I'm sure you'd be able to use that too, she said, or if you can't, I can set everything up for you and I can make these things happen. And she was also a big proponent of, let's not reinvent the wheel. We want this to keep going. We want people to be excited about it. We don't need to get stopped simply because we're trying to do everything completely originally. Dana from the Writing Center, she helped provide our calendar for us. She helped set up some of these different workshops that she was doing, but she really wasn't done there, because she also operates, and why we got along with her so well is because she also operates in that improv communication style. We would mention something and she would say, oh yes, and I have a colleague who works at this institution, they produce this journal, here's what it looks like, here's what we can do. And so she had all of these really big, great ideas. She also mentioned about not only having just a reward or an award for someone that was maybe a piece of paper or something like that, but there could be some sort of monetary award that happens as well for those people who participate and who might have the best research project from that issue. Our dean, Dr. Nordberg, has also been really supportive of the process. He's been great at talking to other deans and other folks in admin offices who we might not always have direct contact to, nor sometimes do we maybe want to have direct contact with either. So he's been really great sharing the work that we're doing within the library, and that's been helping, I think, in just creating this different narrative of the library is just the place where you go and get books, but also the library is the producer of new projects and ideas. The library is the place that's also supportive of students and their success and things like that. Part of my role on campus, both as a student success librarian, but also within my union, I was the student faculty liaison. And so a lot of my work with that would be interacting with the students at the Student Government Association. And over the 3 years that I worked with them, they became pretty amazing partners and a great outlet to bounce ideas off of and also get feedback from the perspective of the students. Just because we think something is a brilliant idea does not necessarily mean that it is a great idea or that students are going to respond in the way that we hope they would. So one of the meetings that I attended, I spoke about this idea that we had and why we were doing it. And a lot of the students there were really interested. And what's great about that student body is that there are representatives from each of the colleges that we have on campus. And so there was someone from sciences and nursing and humanities, arts. And so each one of those people could then go back into their space on campus and talk about this really cool thing that the library is going to be doing. And so once we kind of had their seal of approval, we knew that we had something good that we were working on. Because if the students aren't really interested, is this something that we just keep continuing because of all of the things it could do? You need participants in this. And lastly, and this has been a newer collaboration, is that we're working on contacting with writing across the curriculum. We hear about this group all the time in meetings, but we weren't aware that they had an office or really what they truly did. So this has been a bit of a learning experience for us as well. So what they do is that they help provide opportunities for students to get published, and they have links on their website about different places that students can submit work, or telling them a bit more about publications. And this is now going to turn into something where we can say, well, we have an opportunity that's in their backyard for them to work on publishing as well, and also just have them help share blurbs to put in the syllabi for faculty members, and opportunities like that, that again, we can keep adding to the this is happening and this is happening and then this is happening momentum that we've been working on.
I'll add quickly that what's so great about the partners that we had, not just that, they weren't doing this just out of the goodness of their hearts, supporting us, although they are awesome people. They really saw the symbiotic relationship of how this could work. So for example, the Office of Graduate Research said, we offer research grants to undergraduates that nobody knows about. You push those in your journal and we'll push your journal. Same thing with the Writing Center. We have tutors I need to give opportunities to. You give them to me, I will give you money for your Writing Center. So there was this real symbiotic relationship that people saw. You could, yes, and you can give this to us, and then yes, and we will provide something to you. And now we're going to talk about Chris's graphics. And we can pause for a collective awe. I fully expect the little chat to light up with how adorable.
Yeah, prepare yourself.
I should take myself off mute before I start. Thank you. So having cleverly become part of the team, as I discussed before, I took off with the most fun part of this, which is baby Norm here, doodling a little mascot for the hatchery. Now, baby Norm's the unofficial name. Norm is the IUP athletics mascot. And baby Norm is inspired by that, although, like I said, unofficial name. With a hawk being the university's symbol and the hatchery being the name of the journal, going with a cute baby bird design was kind of a no-brainer. Plus, there's the Baby Yoda thing with big eyes and an oversized hoodie and so forth. So I designed him first, and the plan was then to turn him into little stickers, which we did. I have one stuck on the back of my laptop, which obviously you can't see, but it's a really nice little promotional sticker. On the left side here, you can see a few concepts for different logos for the journal. And now for the journal, after I'd done baby Norm, and he was extremely cute, I took on logos for what we'd use on a website and maybe for a journal cover page. For those, I went with a more staid and professional look, because eventually publications in this journal might appear in, say, a grad school application from a student who's published there. And although I firmly believe that baby Norm could even sway reviewer number 2, I thought that the journal's overall look should really fit better in with the pantheon of other professional journals. The nest you can see here on the right is kind of the core of that logo, and we use that. That's a snapshot of a web page for the hatchery. Sara provided the text. I did the layout and design. anyway, so that's kind of the why of those images, how I came about or how I designed them. But the results really, basically the reception of Baby Norm were way beyond expectations. There was much squealing and rejoicing and people saying my life for Baby Norm and so forth. And that was really just our dean. But we really, bottom line is we really couldn't have paid for the level of enthusiasm we get when people see him, nor I guess you'd call it the conversion rate when people see him and then they say, all right, tell me more about the hatchery. So it has been very successful. At least this visual design has been very successful. I think it's gained a lot of interest, and I'm sure Sara and Elin will say the same. At that point, I think I will turn it back over to, I forget who goes next, but
Elin, we're going to talk about when this takes a turn in March. But I do just want to add that our dean absolutely took the most Baby Norm stickers. He skimmed a bunch off the top before we even got the box, so he could pass them out at all of the meetings he was going to go to, which we appreciate and tickled us greatly.
Yeah, so much so that I think we're putting in another order. Or they're just going to be like some very few like bootleg stickers out there as we develop further marketing and promotion down the line. So, all right. So things, as you can see, were going so well. And then a lot of things happened. One of them being something that we never thought would have stalled our progress. Of all of the things that can stall or stop a program on a campus, global pandemic was not on the short list. And so that kind of took a turn because we were looking in that calendar to really start a lot of the promotions that we were working on over at the end of the spring semester. So at that year's Scholars Forum, we were going to have a table and we were going to pass out stickers and we were going to do all sorts of things for these students. And then over the summer, provide them opportunities to maybe brainstorm what they wanted to work on and come in at the start of the semester, just raring to go. But the pandemic definitely stopped some momentum. We had a lot of our faculty stakeholders. So a lot of the folks that we've partnered with thus far have been people at faculty level. And understandably, they were overwhelmed, as we all were, in transitioning from, kind of our normal everyday physical locations to doing everything online. And so they kind of put on the brakes, which we understood. And but so that kind of stopped things, and so we sort of put a lot of this on maybe a middle burner, not totally the back burner just yet. Also, as you'll see, I am not at IUP anymore. I was an adjunct faculty member there, and due to a lot of different situations, a lot of them being with budgets and whatever, I was not going to be coming back. And so we mentioned here, there's this informal magic that happens between Sara and I. And so a lot of our brainstorming and scheming is, going into one another's offices and saying, so I have this idea, what do you think about this? Let's talk about this. And so then it kind of just keeps that momentum going. And now, instead of just reaching out, it was like, we have been in Zoom meetings all day. You've been doing this all day. Would you like to schedule another meeting that we can chat over Zoom to discuss this? On top of this, Sara is working on her PhD at the moment, so she's in classes frequently. So that kind of halted things too. And then realistically, even though we have a foundation of what's happening, this project hasn't officially started yet. So how much time do we give to this project when there are other things happening right in the moment that seem a little bit more important, because if we don't do those things, actual things that are much more concrete are not going to be accomplished for a lot of folks. So we're kind of in a position right now where we're sort of looking about, what do we do as we go from here? And so one of the things that we'll be doing, and this can all be shared with some folks that then if anyone's interested, we are going, we have some social media accounts. Nothing has been posted on them yet because that's another meeting that we have to have about when and what do we want to share leading up to it. But we're going to be promoting on social media and continuing to have conversations. Again, our dean is on board, sharing information with our president, who has been communicating a lot with those of us who are already in the system, but those, prospective students who are coming in. And so we're looking at ways to market that way as well. And then continuing that, we're also going to start promoting during the fall semester, even though I won't be on campus and will hopefully be employed somewhere else. I'm still going to be helping with this work. This is something that I still want to continue doing as one of the editors. So promoting everything during the fall semester, kind of keeping in line with that calendar, reconnecting with some people as the semester starts up to say, this is something we're still doing, let's not lose momentum, and then still kind of going in that same, schedule that we had planned. And so lastly, we're just sort of titling this essentially, Can't You Hear Me Knocking? That we still are going to be the people that maybe we're the opportunity that keeps knocking on other people's doors to keep this going. Making that noise, having people say, yes, and I can do this, or yes, this is interesting, I can help with this. And that it just keeps going from here. We face different things in our careers where things didn't go the way that we necessarily wanted them to go in the past, but that didn't mean that we gave up. And I think that that's something by us continuing, I think that sets a good example, not only for our students, especially during everything that we're going through, that we kept going. And that's a good example to set for them as well. So,
and new ideas and creativity can still happen. So even as the dumpster fire grows and things in higher ed get more and more dire, good ideas can still happen. New things can still happen. Daring and creativity can still happen. And we want to thank you all for sitting through our presentation. Thank you so very much. If there are any questions at all, because of my laptop setup, I currently can't see the chat. But if there's any questions that people want to toss out or in the chat, please feel free.
If you all want to just unmute yourselves and ask questions, please do. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, but that was an amazing presentation. And baby Norm is adorable. You need a plushie. I'm telling you, a plushie.
Thank you. Yeah, a plushie is next, right?
Uh-huh.
We'll get on that.
Anybody have any questions, please unmute yourself and have at it. You guys are too quiet.
Hold on.
All right. Well, if there's no questions, that really was a wonderful presentation, and it will be shared later. I will, we'll send out an email letting you know that it's been shared. And up next, for the professional development video, there is another one. I can put the link in the chat, and it is for working from home with your partner and children, tips and tricks, by Martin Dunlap and Rocco Cremonesi. I'm sure I just messed that up totally. Sorry, Rocco. And so here is the information for that in the chat. Hopefully that went through. And thank you, everyone, for a wonderful meeting. And have a wonderful day, huh?
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.